Val Ryder's joining us. Val, what am I holding?
It is the very first, fresh off the printer yesterday, copy of Thoughtfully Ruthless.
Which is your book.
It is my book.
And I look at the back page, and I know Peter Moore also.
You do?
I know Peter, I know Robbie Bach. You got some pretty solid people that are endorsing you on this book. From Starbucks to Amazon to Microsoft to some of the biggest names on the planet you've worked with.
Yes.
Right? And I read your bio, and I saw something that just like jumped out at me.
Yeah.
You don't believe in elevator pitches.
I don't.
See, I don't get that, because every one of those companies, they have some of the best pitches.
Yes.
And every group inside Microsoft, they had their own pitch.
Yes.
Why don't you believe in an elevator
Because
pitch?
an elevator goes up and down, and it's automatic, and it's trite. I mean, it's just, people say, you've got to know your elevator pitch. What is it? What is it? And people blurt out the same tedious, boring pitch.
Really?
And so when someone said to me, tell me your elevator pitch before I interview you, and I'm like, no, I want to have a conversation with you. So I'd far rather have a conversation with you and tell you something unique about my business that's useful to your listeners than come out with a trite thing that you get to hear about, and then I tell you the same thing to every person.
What's the book about?
The book is about how you set yourself apart as a leader. Because when you think of a leader, many people think of a thoughtful leader, and many people think of a ruthless leader. And one generates smiles and the other one generates grimaces. But actually that's the wrong way to think about leadership. Because what I found working with Robbie and Peter Moore and Bezos and Obama and so many of these other really great innovators.
Oh, wasn't Peter at Microsoft?
He was.
Yeah, he was at the Xbox group. I remember that too.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So what I have found is that the key to success is how intentional, deliberate, ruthless you are with your time, your energy, and your resources. And you have to do all three of those in parallel. And if you don't, like a three-legged stool, you'll fall over. So you have to do time, energy, resources.
So Val, didn't you just do a pitch?
No. Because I was listening to everything that you've just got to say.
You just did a pitch. It was a slow elevator. We're on a pitch level.
But I wanted to know a little bit more about you.
You know
before
nothing
I
about
did
me
it.
yet. You went to my LinkedIn and nothing's on there.
I know, and you've got secrets.
But that's deliberate. I want people to learn about me. So let's first step back. It sounds like a British accent.
British accent.
But you lived in Seattle.
Yes.
And now you're in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Is this a path that you've designed, or is this all serendipitous?
It's not designed.
It's not designed.
It's not designed. The only design is when I was offered a job when I worked at Xbox in Seattle.
And people have to understand, at Microsoft, Xbox was the rogue group.
It was.
You had Macs.
Yes.
You were able to literally dress differently, act differently. It was that part of Microsoft that didn't feel like it was Microsoft.
Exactly. And that was probably the one brilliant decision that Obama made, was to allow Xbox to do their own thing.
Yeah, but remember, in The Road Ahead, which was Steve's book in 1996, he talked about Xbox in a different way too. He wanted it to be separate. Okay,
Yes.
Ballmer did allow it, but I don't want to get into Ballmer.
I said, well,
I worked for him. Okay, but Xbox, when you were there,
Yes.
you had a different way of thinking.
Absolutely, and it was breakthrough and it was disruptive. But I was there during the Red Ring of Death, where we had $1 billion write-off. And
why?
Because there were quality problems.
At Xbox.
At Xbox, the Red Ring of Death caused the Xbox to fail. And
people have to understand, the Red Ring of Death is on the startup button. It would spin and spin and spin, and nothing would happen.
Exactly. So I was at Xbox when I moved over from England. I was there, and we were close to becoming insignificant because only people who were young boys who liked to shoot things and race things wanted to buy an Xbox. And we knew it was the Christmas when Wii came out, and everyone was doing this with playing tennis with their computer. And we knew we had to be disruptive. And it was Peter Moore, actually, who brought me into his office, and he's like, Val, I need your help. I need your help figuring out what we do to transform the Xbox into something that's broader. And so what we did is we took away 50 of designers, some of our customers, some of our partners, took them away to Leavenworth, which you may know, little sleepy village in the middle of nowhere, and broke every cultural rule at Microsoft.
Like what?
We allowed no spreadsheets, no ego invites, so we didn't invite lots of execs, we just invited people that could talk about the customers and the products. And we said, just be creative, just come up with some ideas of how we could do things differently at Xbox.
Sounds like you were running it like Apple.
Maybe.
That's how Steve would do stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're off-site.
Yes.
That's what you did.
Yeah.
You ran it like a gigantic brain trust and allowed
Yeah.
people to roam free with their imagination.
Yeah, and then we came back into the campus and did a pitch of a number of different ideas, one of which was we realised there was some technology in Israel that some of the hardware teams have been
Kinect.
working on it, and that's where the Kinect came from.
Kinect is, by the way, it's an Israeli-based, and I believe that's like 4 iterations behind of what really is being worked.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't take what the top line technology was because there was military issues that were in the way. Your book, where can people find it?
Everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, CEO Read.
This is your first
available.
book?
First book.
How hard was it?
You know, one of the principles of being thoughtfully ruthless is when you want to do something, you make that your priority. So Wiley actually asked me to write the book in 4 months.
And Wiley and Sons, I believe that's the publisher.
That's the publisher.
Right.
So they asked me to write the book in 4 months.
Were you able to do it?
So I did it.
That's pretty hard to believe because most books at least take 6 months, at least. So you somehow focus so hard to make it happen.
Yeah.
You know what I like to do is this. Do you mind, can I hold you over for the hour?
Of course.
And have you come back? Because what I want to do is I want to talk about a couple of things because where you were at was, I would say, the Rome of its time.
Yeah.
Okay? Because Microsoft, they started to change while you were there. You worked for Amazon, Jeff Bezos, right? These are some of the change-making companies, and you were part of their meetings, and you saw how things were done.
I did.
I would love to talk to you about how to run a successful meeting.
Absolutely.
Do you mind doing that?
Absolutely, I'd love to.
And then I also want to dive a little deeper in this whole ruthless side.
Yeah.
That's a strong word, and some people might feel offended by it, but there's a power behind it too.
There is.
Okay? So ruthlessly, what's the book called?
Thoughtfully Ruthless.
Thoughtfully Ruthless. Say that 5 times fast. You worked with some pretty incredible companies. Why would somebody want to hire you?
Because I do things differently.
Because you're ruthless.
Because I'm ruthless.
No.
Because
Thoughtfully Ruthless is the name of your book. This is the first copy I'm holding in my hands right now, and I've been holding it longer than you have. And the word ruthless is a very strong word that, in most cases, has more of a negative feel to it, and you're saying it's not meant to be negative at all, right?
That's right, but it's a wake-up call.
In what way?
The ruthless part is something that many people don't do. And I'm not suggesting ruthlessness in the form of Games of Thrones. I'm talking about how you're intentional and focused and laser sharp in intentionally working on the right aspects of your business, and many people don't.
But I think you're ruthless to yourself first, aren't you?
You have to be.
Right, so it's not challenging, it's pushing and knowing what your capabilities are and pushing yourself on a regular basis.
Absolutely, and I call it being sensibly selfish. That in order to be ruthless, you have to be sensibly selfish.
I like that.
And that means you have to think about what you need to do to be the strongest, most energetic you possibly can. And you do that by having me time, couple time, family time, and friends time, and building that into your schedule all the while.
You have all those?
I do.
And you've had those even when you were super busy?
Yes, even when I was mum of twins and a baby who wasn't yet 2.
So work-life balance is important. Can I go real quick back to Seattle?
Yes.
Okay, 3 big names.
Yeah.
I mentioned Microsoft, Amazon, and Starbucks. Microsoft at one point in time was worth about $620 billion. You were there when there were some changes going on, obviously, but they were still very innovative. Xbox, the group you were with, was probably one of the most unique groups of all Microsoft. Amazon, of course, Jeff Bezos and the company is the change makers when it comes to e-commerce.
Yeah.
And Starbucks is not a coffee company, it's a community company.
Yeah.
Every one of them brings together smart people, and you were part of tons of meetings at all these places.
Yes.
How do you bring smart, driven people together and find a way to make them all work as one?
First of all, you have to realize that 75% of meetings are a waste of time.
75? So how would you start a meeting?
Before you start the meeting, you have to make sure you have the right people in the room.
How would you curate the people?
You have to be really clear on what it is you're trying to achieve and who really needs to be there. Because many meetings are run with too many people, and many meetings don't have clear outcomes. And as a result, there are people sat there rolling their eyes, multitasking, waiting for the meeting to end, and it gets filled with things that don't need to be talked about.
So you curated the people at every meeting then? You knew who was necessary or not necessary?
I do now with my clients. In my corporate life, I didn't always have that power and control, but now I do when I work with my clients.
So the companies that you're talking to right now, curation of meetings is so important.
Absolutely.
Next, you would gather everyone together, all the right people.
Yes.
How do you start?
You are really clear on what the outcomes are of what you want to achieve.
But didn't you start with silence first?
You see, that's one thing that I really liked about the Amazon culture that not all of my leaders I work with like to do, but I find it the most effective. So Amazon starts every meeting with silence. And they start by preparing ahead of time a white paper or a 3-page or a 6-page document outlining the challenge, the strategy, the insights, the market data, and the finances. And
so that's what's around everybody.
Yeah.
So they sit down without saying anything, but they look at that document.
Exactly. And it was, when I moved from Microsoft to Amazon, it was the most uncomfortable thing for me. And it was like I was sat on my hands, and it was really hard.
Val, let's be realistic. When you're at Microsoft, I remember this, yelling and shouting was acceptable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and actually, if you were yelling at somebody that you were reporting to, that was okay.
Yes. And it was all about your PowerPoint deck, and you'd have a 20-point PowerPoint deck. You might get to page 2 before someone starts asking you questions. And so that randomness sometimes was okay, but usually didn't ever result in anything productive. So when I got to Amazon and I sat on my hands in these meetings, that Bezos was across the door, the table to me, and we'd sit there and we'd read, and everyone would read. There would be silence, and then someone would say, "Is everyone finished?" And someone would go, "No, I need 5 more minutes." Wow. And we'd keep reading. But what was incredible about that was when the conversation happened, everyone was on literally the same page.
That's incredible,
because they all knew the same information.
Did you appreciate that then after time?
Once I got over my unbelievable impatience and I saw the value of it, yes.
Would you implement that in a meeting now?
Yes.
Okay. So an agenda with agenda points, everyone needs to absorb that prior to even talking.
Yes.
That's crazy. I mean, it's great.
It is. I know, and many people find that really hard, but it's so powerful.
But it makes sense.
And it's so productive. The other thing that's important, that this was when I was in England. I joined a games company that Microsoft had acquired for $400 million, the Rare Games Studio. Used to make games for Nintendo. And the design director once said to me, he said, "Val, why does every decision take precisely 60 minutes?
At Microsoft?
Yeah, because everyone schedules a meeting for an hour. And no one ever finishes anything early. And no one ever says, let's have a 15-minute meeting or 12-minute meeting or a 10-minute meeting. And so that's another tip that's in my Thoughtfully Ruthless book is it's okay to schedule a 15-minute meeting.
I think it's great to do
or
one.
a 45 one or a 10 one, or end it if you've made all the decisions you need to make.
Get it done. Get it done. So you're able to actually schedule a lot of meetings probably.
Yes.
You're hyper efficient in your meetings. And then as you curate all these people, as you sit quietly absorbing this, as you don't look at the clock but you finish this early, do you have many more follow-up meetings under this principle of what you're suggesting, or does things get done to where you don't need to do it?
The ideal is you have as few meetings as possible.
Okay.
And that if you create a culture where people are clear how you're allowed to make decisions and what you're allowed to be empowered to make decisions for, you actually don't need to get together as often as some companies do.
Tell me about how your kids perceive you. Seriously, how do they perceive you?
Yeah,
Are you ruthless?
I am.
You're ruthless with your kids?
In a thoughtful way.
Yeah?
Yeah. My kids, it's funny, my 7-year-old is writing a book right now because she's seen me writing a book. So she sits there and she's drawing her pictures and she's writing.
Well, that's great because she's mimicking what the success stories of you are, and she's taking them. So the book today is out. You already have a second one in your mind.
I do.
Which is all around innovation, I think.
Exactly.
Did you see differences in innovation amongst the companies that you work with?
Yes.
Anyone that you would say they're doing it the right way?
I think Amazon is an incredible innovation machine, and what they are able to do fast. My second book is called The Innovation Trifecta, which is about how to create a symbiotic relationship between creative, technical, and business talent.
And they're doing that. Did you get interviewed for Amazon, or did you walk in?
I got interviewed.
So you know the process.
I certainly do, yes.
It's a 3 or 4 tier process, right? And you have to go through a very, very, no one you know will ever interview you.
Yeah.
And once you're in, right?
Yes.
But you're right, innovation has changed Amazon in so many ways.
Yeah.
You look at Amazon today, it's radically different probably than the company you work for,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
What is Amazon to you today?
I think what Amazon is, I mean, they hired 110,000 people last year.
It's unbelievable.
So
what?
I mean, and that includes the warehouse folks, but even so, to be able to hire that volume of people, one of the things they do in their interview process, which I think is pure genius, is they have these bar raisers, which basically means there's someone on your interview loop who doesn't work in your division. So if you work, as I did in the fashion division, then there'll be someone from AWS Cloud Services on your interview loop, and they're looking to see how much of an Amazonian you are.
What does that mean?
And how
What's an Amazonian?
how well do you embody the culture of Amazon? Are you customer obsessed? Can you invent? Can you simplify processes? And they can veto the hiring.
Wow, they blackball you.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that Amazon does think very customer centric.
Yes.
Microsoft did not for a while,
Exactly.
as you know that.
Yeah.
Starbucks is very customer centric, right?
They absolutely are.
So is Seattle now producing all these customer centric companies? Isn't Nordstrom's up there too?
Well, Nordstrom's struggling. They just laid off 350 people.
Ooh,
So
I love, that's my favorite story.
I love to shop at
Thoughtfully
Nordstrom. but-
Ruthless is the book. Val Wright, you want to go pick this up. You want to get exposed to her writing because it looks like this is not the first, but many books will be coming out from Val. Hope to see you here more often.
Thank
you.
you.
Good with that?
Yes, absolutely.